You want to know what 22 inches of snow sounds like when nobody plows it? Silent. Dead silent. No engines, no wheels turning, no neighbors getting to work, no kids getting to school, just white, just buried, just still. And me? I was inside, warm, coffee in hand, watching it all through my kitchen window. Because 3 weeks earlier, my HOA had sent me a fine, not for breaking a rule, not for causing trouble, for plowing their road. The road I had cleared, for free, every single winter, for 4 straight years. They fined me for helping them. So I stopped, and 22 inches of snow did the rest. And 22 inches of snow did the rest. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story doesn't start with a fine. It starts with a blizzard. My name doesn't matter. What matters is this. I've lived in Pinecrest Commons for 6 years. It's a mid-sized HOA neighborhood in the upper Midwest. About 90 homes, nice streets, big old oak trees, a little community gazebo that nobody ever actually uses. When I moved in, it was the kind of neighborhood where people still waved at each other, where someone would shovel your walk if you were sick, where the community actually felt like one. I'm a diesel mechanic by trade. I work with heavy equipment. I know machines the way some people know computers, instinctively, completely. And 4 years ago, I picked up a used plow attachment for my F250 at an auction, paid almost nothing for it, figured I'd use it for my driveway and maybe make a little extra cash clearing driveways for people who needed it. First winter I had it, we got hit hard, 18 inches in one storm. The HOA had a plowing service on a seasonal contract, but they were slammed. Every road in the county needed clearing. They didn't make it to us for almost 40 hours. I watched my neighbor Tom, he's in his 70s, lives alone, try to dig his car out with a garden shovel. I watched a young mom 3 houses down carry her kids through knee-deep snow to reach the main road. I watched people miss work, miss appointments, miss their lives. So I hooked up the plow, went out at 6 in the morning, cleared the entire main loop, about a quarter mile of road, plus the 2 cul-de-sacs, 2.5 hours of work. When I came back inside, there were already texts on my phone, thank yous, voice messages. One lady brought a pie to my door before noon. It felt good, real good. So the next storm, I did it again, and the one after that. For 4 full winters. Every major snowfall, I'd be out there by 5:40, clearing the road before most people even woke up. By the second winter, Riverside Plow had quietly been dropped from the HOA contract. Why pay for something a neighbor was already doing for free? I didn't find that out until later, and when I did, I should have paid more attention to what it meant. By winter 3, I was the de facto snow removal service for the entire neighborhood. Unpaid, uncontracted, unrecognized. Just a guy with a plow and a habit of getting up early. And then the board changed. In came 3 new faces. Richard, retired corporate, the kind of man who carries a clipboard to a neighborhood barbecue. Pamela, sharp dresser, sharp tongue, never seen her smile once. And Derek, younger, seemed to be there mostly to agree with Richard. Within 6 months, violation notices started appearing in mailboxes. Parking warnings, long-length citations, a letter about someone's holiday lights being up 3 days past the approved seasonal window. It started feeling less like a neighborhood and more like a homeowner's correctional facility. It was a Wednesday evening in January. We'd had a decent snowfall the night before, about 7 inches. I'd been out at 5:45 that morning, cleared the road, was back inside by 7:30, ate breakfast, went to work. Normal day. That evening I get home, and there's an envelope in my mailbox. White, HOA logo in the top left corner. I already knew it wasn't good news. Violation notice. Formal assessment, $200 fine. Reason, unauthorized operation of commercial-grade motorized equipment on HOA-maintained roadways without prior board approval, causing surface disturbance and disruption to the aesthetic integrity of community common areas. I read it twice. Then I read it a third time. Surface disturbance, aesthetic integrity. They were fining me for plowing snow off their road. I went inside, sat at the kitchen table, stared at that letter for about 10 minutes. Then I called Richard. Me, Richard. I just got a violation notice. Richard. Ah, yes. The board reviewed several outstanding matters this week. Me, you fined me $200 for clearing snow off the road. Richard, we fined you for operating unauthorized equipment on HOA property. The process requires prior written approval from the board. Me, Richard. I have been doing this every winter for 4 years. Not once has anyone said a word. Richard, previous boards were perhaps less diligent about enforcing community standards. Me, I see. And what's the plan for snow removal now that you've canceled Riverside? Richard, The board is exploring options. Me, exploring options. Tesla's, authorized, part-time. Richard, correct. Me, Richard. Do you understand that I have been your snow removal for 4 years, for free? Richard, the board appreciates community involvement. However, all activities on common property must be sanctioned through proper channels. Me, will the fine be waived? Richard, the assessment stands. You have 30 days to remit payment. I said thank you. I hung up and I sat very, very still. $200 for 4 years of free service, for getting up before sunrise in the cold and doing something nobody asked me to do, but everybody needed. Here's what I did not do. I did not yell. I did not post on the neighborhood app. I did not bang on Richard's door. I opened my laptop. I typed a letter, calm, short, professional. Dear HOA Board, effective immediately, I am discontinuing all voluntary snow removal services on HOA common area roadways. The assessed fine of $200 has been noted. I wish the board success in securing alternative arrangements. Regards. Printed it, signed it, put it in an envelope, sent it certified mail the next morning. Then I went to work, and I waited. Richard wrote back 8 days later. His letter was 3 paragraphs of polished corporate nothing. He thanked me for my years of informal community support, encouraged me to submit the proper pre-approval form, and expressed confidence that we could reach a mutually beneficial arrangement going forward. He thought I was negotiating. He had no idea I was done. The first real storm after my letter came 9 days later, 11 inches, overnight. My plow stayed in the garage. I made coffee at 6 a.m. and watched through my kitchen window. By 7, the road was untouched, white and smooth and completely impassable. By 7:30, Tom was out there with a snowblower trying to clear his driveway just to reach the road, which was still buried. By 8, Sandra was stuck. Her car made it 6 feet out of her driveway before burying itself. By 8:30, my phone was going. Text from Dave across the street. Hey man, you going out today? I replied, not anymore. Check your email. I sent something to the neighborhood list. I had forwarded my letter to Richard to the neighborhood email list. The whole thing, word for word. 20 minutes later, Dave was at my door. Dave, they actually fined you. Me, $200. Dave, for plowing the road. Me, for tire tracks. Dave, that's insane. Me, yep. Dave, so you're really not going out. Me, I'm really not going out. He stood there for a second, then he nodded slowly, like something had clicked. Dave, okay, I get it. This is on them now. Me, yes it is. Word spread fast. By noon that day, my forwarded email had generated 41 reply all responses. Most of them were angry, not at me, at the board. This is absurd. He's been doing this for free and they fined him? Richard needs to explain himself at the next meeting. The HOA monthly meeting fell 2 weeks after the first storm. I went. Usually these meetings have maybe 8 people. That night, there were 31. I counted. I sat in the back row, arms folded, and watched Richard's face when he walked in and saw the crowd. He recovered quickly. I'll give him that. Greg, Richard, who is plowing our roads this winter? Richard, the board is in active negotiation with several qualified vendors. Greg, that's not an answer. Who is plowing our roads this winter? Starting now. Richard, we expect to have a contract finalized within the next 2 weeks. Greg, 2 weeks. We've already had 2 storms. My wife's car slid into a curb last Tuesday. This is a liability issue, Richard, the room murmured. Richard adjusted his collar. Then Sandra raised her hand. Sandra, I'm a nurse. I work overnight shifts. I cannot afford to be unable to get out of my driveway. This situation is not acceptable. Richard's eyes found me in the back row. I gave him a small nod. He looked away. After the meeting, Pamela intercepted me in the parking lot. Pamela, I hope you understand. This doesn't need to be a conflict. Me, I agree. Pamela, if you'd reconsider your position, the board would be open to a conversation about the violation notice. Me, I appreciate that. I've said what I have to say in writing. Have a good evening. She did not have a good evening, I could tell. The board found a company, ClearPath Services. They weren't the worst, but they weren't Riverside either. And they'd only agreed to take on a new client in mid-February at a premium rate, 3 times the cost of what a proper seasonal contract would have been. Richard announced this in a newsletter. Professional winter maintenance now secured. No mention of a fine. No mention of me. No mention of 4 years of free service. The first time ClearPath came out, they plowed the main road but missed the north cul-de-sac entirely, left a pile of snow blocking 2 driveways. My neighbor Carol texted me, Carol, this is what Richard's professional maintenance looks like. Disgraceful. I wrote back, stay safe out there, and I kept watching. ClearPath missed another storm. By the time they arrived, the The snow had been driven over and half melted and refrozen into a sheet of gray ice. 4 cars slid at the bend near the gazebo in a single morning. Pamela's car kissed a fire hydrant at about 3 miles an hour. The neighborhood app exploded. Road is dangerous this morning. What happened to the guy who used to plow? He never let it get like this. I heard they fined him for it. Wait, what? And there it was. 42 households now knew exactly why their road was a skating rink. The moment I knew, completely, absolutely knew, that what I was doing was right came on a Saturday afternoon. My son, he's 11, was watching out the living room window while I was reading. He'd been watching ClearPath make a mess of the cul-de-sac. He turned to me and said, "Son, Dad, why don't you just go fix it? You could do it way better than that guy." And I said, "I know I could. Son, so why don't you?" And I put my book down, and I thought about how to explain this to an 11-year-old. Me. You know how sometimes you do something nice for someone, and instead of saying thank you, they tell you you did it wrong? Son. Yeah. Me. What do you do when that happens? Son. I stop helping them. Me. Exactly. Son. But what if they need the help? Me. Then they figure out another way. Or they learn to say thank you. Son. Are they going to learn to say thank you? Me. I think they might be getting close. He went back to watching out the window, and I went back to my book. But I sat there thinking, this wasn't about the money. It was never about $200. It was about what that $200 meant. It meant that 4 years of cold mornings and early alarms and 2.5 hours of unpaid work meant nothing to these people. Less than nothing. It was a liability to them, a rule violation, an aesthetic disruption. If I went back out there now, after all of this, I would be teaching them that they could treat people any way they wanted, and those people would just keep showing up. I wasn't going to teach them that, so I waited. And then the storm came. The forecast came in on a Thursday. Winter storm warning. 18 to 24 inches expected over 48 hours. I read the forecast and felt something I can only describe as very calm. ClearPath was contacted by the board on Friday. ClearPath said they would do their best but had 12 clients ahead of us on their priority list. The storm started Saturday at 9 p.m. By Sunday morning, 14 inches. By Monday morning, 22 inches. The deepest single storm our neighborhood had seen in 11 years. Nobody could get out. Not a single car on our street moved on Sunday. Richard sent an emergency email. He called it a winter safety update. He said ClearPath was being counseled on response time expectations and that the board was committed to resident safety as its highest priority. Committed to resident safety. While Pamela's bumper was at the body shop, ClearPath didn't come Sunday. They didn't come Monday morning either. Then Derek knocked on my door. He showed up on a Sunday morning looking like he hadn't slept well. Derek, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? Me, sure, come in. Derek, I want you to know I voted against the fine, both times it came up. Me, both times? Derek, Richard brought it up twice. First time it was 2-1 against. He brought it back a week later with different framing and got Pamela to switch. I still voted no. Me, what does he think now? Derek, he thinks ClearPath will sort itself out and this will blow over. Me, and what do you think? Derek looked at the window, then back at me. Derek, I think we're about to get a very big storm. He was right. The storm started Saturday at 9 p.m. By Sunday morning, there were already 14 inches on the ground, and it was still coming down hard. By Monday morning, 22 inches, the deepest single storm our neighborhood had seen in 11 years. Nobody could get out. Not a single car on our street moved on Sunday. The road was a tunnel of white. You couldn't see the curbs. You couldn't see the fire hydrant. You couldn't see the mailboxes. I want to be honest with you here. This was not comfortable for me. Real people in that neighborhood had real problems. An older man 2 streets over needed to get to a dialysis appointment. A family at the end of the North Cul-de-sac had a flight, their first trip in 4 years. A woman who works at the hospital couldn't get to her shift. I got in my truck without the plow, and I made trips, one at a time, carefully. I drove Tom to his dialysis center. I drove the hospital worker to the transit station 4 blocks away, where buses were still running. I helped the family with the flight get their bags to the main road, where a rideshare could reach them. 4 trips. No charge. Nobody asked. I just did it. And I did it all without touching the HOA road with my plow blade. My neighbors talked. Of course they did. And the story that spread through the neighborhood app wasn't the road is bad. It was, did you see what he's been doing while the board sits on their hands? By Monday afternoon, Richard was fielding calls from residents, from the property management company. And according to Derek, who sent me a single text that just read, Richard is having a very hard day. From the HOA's insurance carrier, who had questions about liability exposure from the ice incident. Monday evening, my phone rang. Richard, I answered. Richard, I'd like to come speak with you. Me, okay. He was at my door 11 minutes later. No hat, no gloves. He'd walked over from 4 houses down in 22 inches of snow. I let him in. He stood in my entryway, snow on his shoulders, looking like a man who had spent 48 hours being told he was wrong by everyone he knew. I offered him coffee. He said yes. We sat at the kitchen table. Long silence. Richard, the fine was an error in judgment. Me, yes. Richard, I underestimated the situation. Me, you underestimated a lot of things. Richard, I'd like to make it right. Me, I know. That's why you walked over here in a blizzard without a hat. Something almost like a smile crossed his face. Almost. Richard, the board wants to formally rescind the violation notice and refund the fine with applicable interest. We'd like to offer a written service agreement, fair compensation, formal recognition, full exemption from any equipment ordinances, if you'd be willing to resume. Me, tell me something first. Richard, okay. Me, why did you issue the fine? What were you actually trying to do? He thought about it. And to his credit, he answered honestly. Richard, I wanted to establish that the board had authority over common areas. I thought if I let one thing slide, everything would slide. I thought you'd just pay it and it would be a precedent. I didn't think about what you actually meant to this neighborhood. Me, you didn't think about what would happen if I stopped. Richard, no, I didn't. Me, Richard, you fined someone for doing something good. You took a generous act and turned it into a violation. When you do that, when you punish generosity, you don't get more generosity. You get exactly what you got. He didn't say anything. He wrapped both hands around his coffee mug and looked at the table. Me, send me the agreement in writing. All 3 signatures. Include the interest on the fine at your standard late payment rate. And add a clause. If this ever gets cited as a violation again, the agreement voids, and you owe me 2 full seasons of professional plowing rates as damages. Richard, that's very specific. Me, I had a quiet few weeks. The agreement came 3 days later, all 3 signatures. Derek's was the firmest. Pamela's looked like it had been signed under protest. Richard's was in the middle. The fine was refunded, $200 plus $12.50 in interest. I went out the next morning, 5:40 a.m., still dark. The storm had passed. The sky was clear, and there was 22 inches of snow on that road. It took me 3 hours and 40 minutes. Hardest plow job I'd done in years, but I did it clean, every inch, both cul-de-sacs, the turn by the gazebo, the stretch in front of Tom's house. When I came back around on my last pass, Tom was standing on his porch in his bathrobe and boots, coffee mug in hand, watching. He raised his mug at me. I raised mine back. I brought a thermos. Sandra texted. I could cry. Genuinely. Thank you. Dave shoveled my walkway while I was out. Didn't say a word about it. Just did it. And Richard? I didn't see him that morning. His car didn't move until almost noon. That was fine. As for the board, Derek announced 2 weeks later that he was resigning. He said the board had lost sight of the difference between governance and control. Greg filed to run in the spring election. So did Sandra. So did Carol. I don't know yet how it'll turn out, but I know the neighborhood is different now. More awake. More paying attention. And me? I'm still here. Still getting up at 5:40 when it snows. Still doing the same thing I've always done. The only thing that changed is now I have a signed agreement, a refunded fine, and a very clear understanding of exactly what my mornings are worth. Turns out, a lot more than $200. When you give something freely and someone responds by punishing you for it, you are not obligated to keep giving. You are not selfish for stopping. Let the natural consequences speak. They always do, louder than anything you could say. 22 inches of snow said everything I couldn't.